Love means I'm willing to have the awkward conversation because I love you so much, it's worth it. You're worth it. And by the way, you can say to your kids, what we're about to discuss could get awkward. I'm uncomfortable with it. You're too important for me not to have this conversation. Imagine a parent saying, I'm not having that conversation. I'm not ready for that conversation. You know what you just said to your kid? You're not worthy of me getting uncomfortable for you.
Welcome to the Generation Youth Podcast. I'm your host, James McLamb. I'm here with a friend of mine named Mike, a new friend that actually a mutual acquaintance of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Graham Yahtzee, we're able to introduce us. So, Mike, welcome to the Generation Youth Podcast.
Thanks for having me here, James. Happy to be having this discussion.
Well, I'm excited about this discussion. I'm excited about the topic. I feel it's a very important topic, as the audience has probably read some of the show notes already. They've seen kind of what we're going to talk about. But before we dive into that too deep, my audience would love to know a little bit about you, and they really get tired of me talking. So, Mike, if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself to the Generation Youth audience.
Yes, so I'm the Center for Respect founder and president, and I work presenting programs in schools, everything from middle schools, high schools, universities, military too, and corporations, but a lot in middle schools and high schools, helping students gain specific skills around really honoring one's boundaries, partners' boundaries, dating, sexual decision making, and preventing violence, sexual assault, bystander intervention, but really, really teaching them skills on how to be in healthy, wonderful relationships and how to watch out for red flags.
Where did this passion to do this? Because this is a topic that people don't just wander into by accident. It's something that drives them to do this, something that is a burning desire for them to really help people do this. What drove you to this topic?
Yeah, you don't grow up, and I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. Nobody was having these conversations.
Yeah.
So you certainly didn't go into your life thinking, I'm going to do this for a living. No, when I was 19, I received a phone call that one of my sisters had been sexually assaulted, had been raped. And that would change my life forever. From that, I became a little bit lost for a while because I didn't know what I could do to make it, to help, to support her. And then about a year into it, I realized, wait, I could speak about this. I saw a speaker. I thought I could do that. And that's where it all began. When I was 20 years old, I started speaking in local schools. That was 34 years ago now, and have been speaking all over the world doing this work since that time. So for me, this is a personal mission. And what we decided, early on was, hey, this horrible thing happened. We can't reverse it, but there's a lot we can do to make sure this doesn't happen to others. And I did not want to be one of those speakers that students get so sick of that come to the school, scare them with statistics, with fear mongering about the topic. I wanted to give them things they could do in their life that gave them healthy relationships. So it wasn't just a don't do this, avoid this. It was, here's what you can do to make a difference in your life and the life of everyone around you. And that's really where we started. Very high energy, interactive. We use humor on a topic that people think you wouldn't use humor in, because there are places where humor is essential to keep it light and allow everybody to feel safe in the environment.
To kind of set the stage, if you don't mind, set the stage for our audience so that they can kind of understand what the problems are. And like recently, I have been coaching. I'm in the middle of teaching a class on new youth life coaches. So there's some people coming through there want to be certified as youth life coaches, and we're in a class. And one of the classes that we teach, we talk about the current situation of youth. And we know from statistically that sexual activity is down. So most folks are thinking, oh, it's down because, technology and internet, but there's a deeper issues. There's some other things. So would you mind setting kind of share with us what the current situation is as you see it?
Well, here's the easiest way to explain it. I'm in schools every week around this country, and students, the same as they answered 30 years ago, still answer today the following. One, is the party scene where people are intentionally getting people drunk or high to try to get them into a sexual situation. They say overwhelmingly that happens all the time. Not every now and then. They say this happens a lot. By the way, this doesn't matter what size school I'm in. It doesn't matter whether I'm in a private school, public school, a faith-based school or not. These answers are consistently the same. So right there, you have students telling you a lot of people are trying to get people into sexual situations they're not comfortable with. They're using alcohol or drugs to facilitate this to happen. This could end up being a sexual assault. This is a major, major issue. So that's one. That's one trend that has been consistent, right? There's another one. You ask students, have you kissed somebody, made out with somebody, been sexually intimate with somebody you didn't want to? And they might have even gave you a choice, but you said yes because you didn't want to say no. You felt bad saying no. Students overwhelmingly, James, that they have said yes to sexual activity they didn't want to have because they were never given the skill set to understand it's okay to say no. They were taught from their parents, you don't say no to people. That's mean. And some parents would be, listen, I didn't teach that. Well, you might not have intentionally, but if you ever said something to your kids like, will you mow the lawn by 5? And the kid says, not today, I'll do it tomorrow. And you go, no, you're doing it today. They were just taught, if I say no,
Ooh.
it's not acceptable. And not only is it not acceptable, you don't say no to people who have authority or you care about, because there's my parents who taught me that lesson. So these are taught at a very subconscious level, and it becomes very dangerous. So if they're afraid to say no, even when they're given a choice, they're often running into situations where they are not of sound mind to make a choice. A person's doing that intentionally to do harm to them. This means we are lacking education because they don't feel empowered enough to make choices in these situations that are best for them. And that is a dangerous world. And it's improving, but minuscule it's improving, right? Students are learning about consent, but they don't think it's realistic. And that's what we do. We come in and we give them realistic ways to ask, to declare your boundaries. What's really amazing, Graham, is we do surveys. We do post-event surveys with every audience. And people come to you and go, yeah, but how much are high schoolers listening to a program like that? How much is that really going to make a difference? 95% of high school students after the assembly say they are more likely to ask before ever engaging in intimacy across all demographics. The same percent, 95, say they're more likely to intervene for a peer at a party who somebody's trying to do that to. They're going to intervene now. They're going to take action. And 94% say they're more likely to reach out to their friends and family, let them know I'm here for you if this has ever happened to you. Those are staggering numbers showing they want to do the right thing if we're willing to have the tough conversations.
That's overwhelming. First off, the statistics that they're saying that. Such optimism in the future of them. And I can see actually from the perspective that I work at that our youth will run for an opportunity to help someone else.
Yes.
More so than they would say no on their own.
That is true. And by the way, even on the first one, if they have the skills.
Yes.
If they don't have the skills, even if they want to help, they think, well, I don't know how to. So they freeze, right? It's analysis paralysis, right? Is what we talk about. They sit there and they try and analyze versus do something. And that's why these discussions are critical. You can't say to kids, do the right thing. That gives them no skill set, right? We were taught do the right thing. How'd that work for our generation? A lot of mistakes were made because you can convince yourself whatever is happening in the moment is the right thing. You can rationalize anything versus let me give you exact scenarios and skill sets to use in those scenarios.
What else to go into that? You really have 3 audiences that you are speaking to in this regards that they're listening to you. We have parents, we have students, and we have the schools themselves. I know for a fact we got a lot of parents that are listening. So let's just start there. If you're talking to them, every parent that I've ever talked to is scared to death of topics like this, any kind of topics related to these things. This could also go into drugs or gambling or alcohol, all those different types of things that they're talking about. But they also, almost to a person, almost 100%, are going to say, but it's probably not my kid. I'm scared about it, but it's probably not going to be my kid. It's probably going to be the neighbors. My kids are exposed. I'm keeping them safe. So let's speak to that. Let's speak. How can you convince them that, hey, this is something that you need to take more than just a passing seriousness to? Because I do think
here's
they
the
take
easiest
it
way to
serious.
start. Yeah, here's the easiest way I'm going to start this. If you think not my kid, why is your kid going to ever come and tell you it is them?
Ooh.
You just set a tone, a belief in your house.
Ooh.
My kid would never do that. My kid would never get in that situation. And even if you haven't said it out loud, if that's a belief you have and your kid is picking it up subconsciously or intentionally, I'm not going to that parent when I am in that situation because they don't believe I would ever get in that situation, which implies my parent's going to blame me for being harmed because I got myself in that situation. Instead of saying, hey, my parents were proactive. Instead, if this ever happens to me, they're going to be here for me. And they know it's not my fault. They've told me if somebody harms me, it's not my fault. No matter what I did that night, no matter how much I drank, no matter what I wore, it's not my fault. My parents have made that clear. So when this happens to me, I think I can talk to my parents versus a parent who refuses to talk about this. And the kid thinks, well, they don't even talk about it. I can't go to them. So what you do when you have that mindset of not my house, not my kids, you actually leave a more dangerous home because nobody's being equipped with skills because you want to believe naively that it can't be yours. But here's the easiest way to prove it can. Ask most high schoolers by the end of high school if they've been sexually active in some form or fashion, or in any way they've had sexual activity occur with their body. The far majority are going to tell you yes. So in other words, everybody's kids are typically involved in this except a few, actually. Right? That's the exception, not the norm. So now the question is, how do I want my kids to be armed and equipped in those situations? Second of all, if you think, not my kid, not yet, not now, well, when do you think it's going to be your kid? Never? What about when your kid leaves the house? If they didn't get the education in high school when you were there and present, what are the odds they're turning to you for this information in college? Or when they go off to the military? It's
Wow.
almost unheard of. They're going to turn to their peers. Do you want another 18-year-old teaching your kid about sexual activity, intimacy, decision making? In high school, do you want a 15-year-old friend telling them, oh, I'm sexually active, here's how it works? Because you have not had the conversation at home? Because I promise you their friends are talking about this stuff.
Not my kid leads to a more dangerous household. Wow. That really drops a bomb. That puts it in perspective on there. All right. The first thing that came to mind when I was doing this is the question that somebody's screaming right now at their screen or in their podcast. When do I start these conversations? When do I
Yeah.
start this? How early do I need to start this? You know, that's the
This is
scary
an
thing to
age-
have these kind of discussions.
Yeah, it is. And here's what I will tell parents. I'll say, do you love your kids? And they say yes. Well, then you need to have awkward conversations.
Hmm.
Love means I'm willing to have the awkward conversation because I love you so much, it's worth it. You're worth it. And by the way, you can say to your kids, what we're about to discuss could get awkward. I'm uncomfortable with it. You're too important for me not to have this conversation. Imagine a parent saying, I'm not having that conversation. I'm not ready for that conversation. You know what you just said to your kid? You're not worthy of me getting uncomfortable for you.
Wow.
Right?
Oh,
So
Mike.
I don't believe any parent out there believes that. So let me be clear. When I say that, I don't think any parent listening to this believes that, but that's the message. So as a parent, we should look in the mirror and go, that's not who I am. I'm willing to get uncomfortable for my kid. Absolutely. So I'm going to have these conversations. So you have them age appropriately. And here's what I mean by that. When your kid can start to talk and walk, all right, teach them their body parts. Because when you don't, if somebody ever does anything and they say, where'd they touch you? And the kid can't name, legally, it's a nightmare. So what's weird is a parent will say, oh, to elbow, nose. But if you say penis or vulva, they freak. And you go, it's a body part. Why in the world are you not teaching your kids their body parts? Every body part's a body part if you talk about it that way. Now, if you sexualize it all the time, that's a different ball game. But they should learn their body parts first. Two, in that same conversation, they should learn their body is their body. And others do not have the right to touch their body against their will or consent. And the only time that it should occur where somebody is touching you is if I, your parent, for safety, for well-being, for health and wellness, I'm doing something to help you, or we have asked the doctor to do something to help you, but nobody else should say I have the right to hug you. I have the right to touch you in places, right? That's at a young age you can teach that. If you teach that at a young age, as they get older and you have these conversations later in elementary school, when they start talking about so-and-so like so-and-so, so-and-so, you need to start having a little bit different conversation now.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Ask your kids, what does that mean that they're dating? They have a boyfriend or girlfriend in third grade. What does that mean? Right? And then as they get to middle school, this is where the experimentation kicks up to a whole different level. It's usually where we see way more sexual experimentation occurring. That's where parents need to have more serious conversations. Middle school, and then you need to revive it throughout the year, every year, just a little bit. 2-hour talks don't need to happen every year.
Yeah.
Revive it, every now and then throughout the whole middle school through high school experience.
It's more of a slow drip of
That's right.
information to let them know that, hey, I'm willing to talk about this with you. I'm willing to have these awkward conversations because I love you and I care about you.
Even if you don't want to have them.
Yes.
It's my job. It's my job. So if you're going to hate these conversations, know that I love you too much to not have them.
I love that. That one statement there is hashtagable. I mean, we could just drop the whole conversation in that one thing. I love you too much not to have them. That's powerful. Wow.
Well, thank you.
All right, let's talk about the students. Now,
let's pause there for 1 second,
Okay.
James. Let's back up there for 1 sec. And you brought up something earlier. Nobody wants to believe it's them. And let me just show you the proof of that. I get brought in by public schools, private schools all over the country. I speak to 1,000 students during the day, or maybe 150. Maybe it's a small school. And less than 10% of parents show up at night. The 10% that show up are like, why isn't this place packed? By the end of the session, why isn't this packed? We all needed this. We need every other parent to need this to help our kids, right? If every parent's in here, every kid's in a better place. But because of that, not my kid, parents don't even show up to get the information. So one thing I challenge parents is to go, maybe it's not your kid, but what if your kid's friend is the one who's talking to your kid about this, influencing them? Go to any kind of education you can so you're more equipped as a parent, whether it's your kid or not yet.
That's a good point. I mean, why isn't it filled up? And again, I'm thinking as a parent, I have three. Two are, I got a 24, a 21, and a 14. And I'm thinking, the school at the 14-year-old, it's got to be a group. We all got to have the same
That's
kind
right.
of philosophy of this. Because if only 10% are owning this, and we got 90 that are having a different worldview going to this, it's just going to be an uphill battle for us to fight.
That's correct. Yeah,
Uphill
the more
battles
and
can
don't
be
get me wrong,
won.
there are schools that draw great attendance of parents. It's rare. It's rare.
Well, let's talk about the students. You talked about speaking to them
Yep.
during the day, 1,000 to 150 middle school and high school that you're speaking to. What are you telling them? And what is their response in that moment? What are they doing?
Yeah, it's a conversation. So the one thing I'm not is a lecturer. Nobody of any age wants a lecture. Adults don't, kids don't. Right? Nobody wants to be told what to do. What they do want to discuss what's happening in their world that can be confusing. So I walk on stage. If it's a middle school, I start with this simple question: are people dating in middle school? And they, yes or no. The whole room yells yes. Okay, what does it mean to date in middle school? And they will go from everything you like someone, so you sit next to them, to you go to the movies with somebody, to you begin sexual experimentation with them. You'll have a sixth grader, seventh grader saying sex in front of all their classmates. And now it doesn't mean they're doing that. It means they've heard of others. That's what it means, right? So suddenly you have a 13-year-old, 12-year-old saying this in front of the whole room, and the room's agreeing. They're like, yep, I've heard of that. And so when parents go, we don't need to be having this in middle school. Really? Because the 12 and 13-year-olds are telling me this is happening. And they're so comfortable saying it, they're saying it in front of teachers in their entire school. So this means it's happening, whether it's in your house or not your house. So then what we do is we help them recognize, is this a serious situation? Which they get. They're like, yes, it is. Do you think at this age people are equipped with the tools to handle this? No, they admit that. No. Okay, so let's talk about the tools we need so we can make better choices when these things are being either pushed on us, manipulated on us, or we're the one trying to get this, so that we stop doing this at this age. We're not even legal. You can't do this legally. You're committing a crime if it's happening. So we don't get too caught up in the crime, because kids don't, like most kids, they're not going to think they're going to get caught up with a crime. They don't think they're going to be charged. But what we do is talk about what's right? And helping them understand that for themselves, that my boundaries should be respected. So we give them tools on how to say no. You'd be astonished how many kids will not say no, even if they're given a choice. But second of all, they're often not given a choice. Somebody's just trying something on them. They don't ask first. So helping them understand, my body's my body. You don't have the right to do this to me. I have the right to say no. It's not mean. It's actually the right thing for me to do for myself. That's one. Two, you already brought up intervening. So how do you intervene to help others? You're at a friend's house and somebody's trying to get somebody to a back bedroom. Somebody's trying to take somebody out to a car in high school and do something in the car. You know the person's drunk. You know it. You watch them feed the drinks the whole night. What are you going to do about it? And most students will be, well, that sounds like it could become a sexual assault. So what do most people do about it? And they're honest. They're like, most people don't do anything. So are you the student who sits by when somebody could be setting up a sexual assault right in front of you? Are you the student who thinks you should do something because that's who you are? And when you use language like that, the students are like, I'm the student who's going to do something. Even though I haven't before today, I am the student who's going to do something because that is who I am. And when you help them own who they are, once again, they want to do the right thing. So we give them the exact language to use, how to approach the person, how to get other people involved. We give them the exact steps so that when they get in that situation, they're going, oh, I know what to do, versus going, oh, I wish I knew what to do, but I don't, so I'm going to stand by. And that's why those statistics earlier are incredible. They're not saying I'm now equipped to do the right thing in the survey. They're saying I can't wait to do the right thing. I can't wait to intervene. I can't wait to ask first in high school, right? In middle school, you shouldn't be doing anything. But in high school, when I do start dating, I can't wait to ask first instead of just making my move on someone. This is a whole different approach.
I think you hit upon something with empowering them with these tools that feeds into their desire to have purpose in life. I mean, they all want a
Yes.
bigger purpose. I mean, there's a great book written on the pathway called The Pathway to Purpose, helping youth find their purpose in life. I don't think that's the title, but that's basically what the book is about. And it talks about the fact that when we can equip them with things that they feel strongly about and have a purpose for this, that it encourages them to be the better person, to be the better selves that they are. And that's what you're doing by giving them this, and they're seeing this. I can make a difference in my little community. Because I guarantee you, each one of them knows of someone, whether it's in their little clique group or not, but they know of someone who has encountered something like this before. And they're just
Yes. And by
afraid
the
to
way,
say.
it could be their sibling.
Yeah.
They could be the younger one to an older sibling who they're watching engage in these things. So what we know is that when a student has an older sibling, they're more likely to start younger
Mm.
because they think they're ready because they've seen it already. They think they know what they're doing because they've seen it. And so once again, more reason we need to give tools because their older peer might be in some really unhealthy situations. The younger one doesn't know that. They think it's the perfect situation. So it's possible the younger one's watching an older sibling in an unhealthy relationship and thinking that's the standard. This is how I treat people. This is how I should be treated. So we have to also recognize when, hey, you know what? That's not okay. I deserve better than that. That's a really powerful moment of knowing what I'm worth.
And what I really love about your approach is not only are you equipping them and getting them going, you're the catalyst, you're the spark that sets a fire in them that's like, I want to do the right thing. But we know, this is proven, we know that that spark can die out if it's not continually fed with sustaining fire. And so you provide the schools with tools and equipment that can go
That's right.
alongside of what you're doing. Talk about that as well, because this is what I love about when I was reading about your site and stuff, is that you don't just drop that fire on them and get them all excited and then say, I just did a good job today and walk away. And then the school in a month is right back where they went from because they've forgotten, who was that guy? What was that guy? They've got something now in place
That's right.
can happen. So talk some about that, because I love it.
Yeah. So James, what we do is we have a full curriculum that supports this. And so every school that brings me in, every middle school and high school that brings me in, gets the instructor's guide along with 30 copies of the book to use in the school. They can take the exercises out of the instructor's guide and use it across the school. They don't need to use it just for those 30 books. And so they can be using an exercise from each, let's say one exercise a chapter, once a month for the rest of the year. So you're reinforcing every month and it's included. In addition, we do 50 to 60-second videos Monday to Friday. They're called shorts that we release on YouTube, Instagram, that they can pull any one of those up and go, oh, this is a great one for reinforcement. Often they're actual clips from me speaking in schools. So it's great because they can do a little refresher. Oh, here's Mike talking about saying no is healthy. Let's share that with all the students this week. So those are really easy things to do to reinforce that are effective.
So what are some examples of how schools have implemented this? Because I was a teacher for a decade, and it's very common for folks to come in and give us curriculum that's really good, but then when they leave, the school just kind of sits around and says, how do we make this work with 1,000 other things that's demanding our day? So what are some examples of some school systems and how they're integrating it into their systems?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the school. You're 100% correct. There are schools that I can give them all these resources and they may not use any of them. They brought me in for that day. I will tell you this, though. The powerful thing about our work is that students will say, we'll meet students years later, that even if it didn't get reinforced throughout the year, they used it the rest of their life. So the reinforcement is really valuable. It's not essential. People assume, well, this can't work if it's not reinforced. We have found that students will tell you overwhelmingly that is not true. Now, it helps without a doubt to reinforce, which is why we provide the instructor's guide. Why? So here's the schools that tend to thrive with year round. They typically have started a student organization. They've created one. And that student organization is passionate about this topic. And now they're going to use the instructor's guide, the curriculum, the books throughout the year to do poster campaigns, to do lunch events, keeping this event going, this discussion. They might have once a month, teachers have this question that they discuss in homeroom, but they get creative with what they do with the resources. And it's usually driven by a school that has either strong parent organization wants to use it somehow, but typically it's a student organization that's driving.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Mike. When you were going through about the curriculum, I was thinking the way I could see it working most effectively in the schools that I taught at would be if there was a student organization, a club that was identified that was centered around this topic. I mean, we have clubs for everything else at the school. And to mimic that be when I came through in the 80s, the late 80s, Our student organization that was kind of mirrors this was SAD. Do you remember what
Yeah.
SAD is? The audience, do you know what it is?
We're similar age. So yes, I remember those days. Mad and sad. Right.
Mad and sad. And for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, we're not talking about emotions here. We're talking about SAD is students against driving drunk. And of course, MAD would be mothers against.
And MAD was first, ironically.
Yes.
All right.
And that was a big organization in our school. And we met twice a month and built a billboard and partnered with other student organizations inside of our school to have this billboard and these walkathons and all these things to kind of bring consciousness to this because of this. And unfortunately, SAD became popular as a result of, this was before I even became a student at that high school, of an incident where kids were killed driving drunk. So a lot of times, and this is sad to say, these types of organizations happen because of a problem that they've already seen happening, not because they anticipate we want to be proactive. It's really the other way around. So I'm glad that they're doing it.
What I am grateful in our work, and I am very grateful for this, James, is that we are not the reaction program. In other words, somebody bringing me in typically is proactive. Mm-hmm. They're usually bringing me in because they care deeply about this, and they're making this investment. Sadly, when it's reactive, this is going to sound weird, but we find it to be true. They're willing to invest less. They just want to show they're covering their tracks. When they're proactive, they invest more because they already cared about the topic, right? So if I never cared about the topic and then something happens and I go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it happened here. I don't know what needs to be done. So I take the quickest, easiest approach to cover the tracks. If I'm passionate about the topic, I've done research, I've done work. I know this is not a quick fix. So I'm going to invest in the best possible options to be effective because I get it. That's what it's going to take. I'm not just looking for a Band-Aid. I'm looking for a long-time solution. And that is different. So proactive is way healthier because reactive tends to be get the Band-Aid, get the Band-Aid in here now, right? Versus, oh, how do we remove this from the community long-term? That's a very different discussion.
Wow. That's a great point that I had not thought of, that reactive tends to spend less, proactive more. That's something I'm going to be sharing quite a bit with people that I know. The last question that I want to deal with is we're in a digital age. And so the Center for Respect, I know you guys have you've had to thought through, this stuff is not just happening in person anymore. We're seeing a lack of boundaries and sexual boundaries in the digital age. Speak to how that is integrating and what you're seeing and how it works.
Yeah. Well,
that was a vague question, wasn't it?
No, not at all. The use of nudes. Let's just get right to it. It was called sexting originally. Now most people call it nudes. Parents might call it sexting. Students call it nudes. How prevalent that is. So parents can't imagine that because in our day and age, if you were to do that, it was a Polaroid. There was no way you were going to take a picture on an actual camera, send it down to Kmart where they processed and you saw everybody's photos publicly. Right. And
you stood the chance of somebody else getting that pack of photos by mistake.
Right, exactly. There was a million risks. You would never have done it. Your only shot was a Polaroid, right? And even that scared you that somebody would see the Polaroid, right? That just scared them. So people didn't do it. So parents go, I can't imagine kids doing that. Yeah. If you had a cell phone that would have made you really easy to see people you were hot for naked, and you're 15, be calm there on what you actually remember, how hormonal you were and how these things were new and exciting. The biggest mistake we can make is thinking, I never would have. You don't know. So that statement is very unhealthy and it's very judgmental towards your kids versus going, I wonder what that would be like to have that available 24/7 on any urge or thought you have. Any sexual thought or urge can be investigated online instantly. And so what you do is you start to hear your peers say, oh, you like so-and-so? See if they'll send you a nude. Like it's everyday conversation, right? And suddenly people are being asked for nudes. They don't feel safe saying, they don't want to send it. But remember what they don't like saying. They don't like saying no. It feels bad. So they're caught in this weird vortex. Sometimes they're manipulated. If you don't send me a nude, I'm going to make up horrific things about you. These threats actually happen. I've had students say in front of the whole school, well, what if I don't send the nude and they threaten they'll kill themselves? This is the level of manipulation and predatory behavior occurring. And by the way, that's not one school I've heard that at. I've heard that multiple times. Right? So these are real things that can be facing kids today.
Well,
so
I've heard on the opposite end of that is kids sending those, getting trapped into sending those, and then being almost blackmailed from the other side and then killing themselves. That
Oh,
I have
yes.
witnessed to.
Oh, no, the blackmail, that's what I'm saying. The
Yeah.
manipulator, the predator here is the blackmailer. And they're threatening, if you don't send it, I'll harm myself. Then you send it, and then they harm you because
Yes.
now they have everything they need to blackmail you. So now they harm you, and that kid takes their life. So this is why these conversations are vital right now. And what we don't want to do is shame the body. That's a mistake a lot of parents make. Don't send a nude. Your body is not for others to see. Your body is not this. Your body is not that. That's not an approach that's ever been effective. You're going to make them feel horrible about their body, like there's something wrong with it. Instead, your body is amazing. It's a temple. And so it deserves to be treated like one, right? It's this beautiful, wonderful, you should love your body. Look at your body in the mirror and love every ounce of it. And look at every ounce of it and find what you would love, because the right person is going to love your body for you, for your body. They're not going to want you to change it. They're not want you to look like the porn star. They're not going to want you to look like the popular student in school sitting 2 seats over. They're going to love exactly what's in front of them because they love you and they love your body. So that's the partner you deserve to have, not somebody who wants you to change or show you nudes so that they can see if they like you or you're attractive enough. And here's a way to explain it, James. Nobody before cell phones ever had to see a nude to decide if they wanted to be with someone.
Wow.
So why does that 15-year-old need to? Why does that 20-year-old need to?
And really,
They didn't
youth are
need to.
not to blame as much on this.
Correct.
They are only reacting to the world that we created for them. That we
right.
created this world without understanding what we were doing, without foreseeing, and some of it is not adults' fault as well. We didn't know what we didn't know. So
That's
we
right.
created this world, and there are all these new issues and problems that we've never imagined a decade, 2 decades ago would exist. And we've got to be proactive in equipping.
Absolutely. And while still making sex and sexuality this beautiful, wonderful joy.
Mm-hmm.
And all people go, well, what about religion? Religion says that it's supposed to be this amazing, beautiful thing. That's what religion actually says. So if you're a person of faith, you should be teaching your kids to love their body, to honor their body. And by the way, to love a partner too, and to respect the partner's boundaries and the partner's bodies. You don't try to get them to do things they don't want to do. That's not how you treat someone like a temple. And somebody trying to pressure you to do something is not treating you like a temple, right? You deserve to be treated like a temple because you are one. Love your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And teaching that is beautiful and it's positive, and it doesn't leave scars for the rest of their lives when they're with partners.
Oh, wow. There's so many levels to that. Wow. I hope that by our conversation today that our audience is like, where can I find out more information? Where I can do? So how can they connect with you? What is the best way for them to engage with you, to learn more about your message and see how they can interact?
Yeah, the easiest way is Center for Respect, all spelled out, centerforrespect.com. Go there, everything's there. If you're with a high school, a middle school, a university, military, it's all there. And so the other option is they're going, well, where are you on social media? Social media, I'm Mike Respects on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Look up Mike Respects. My last name's hard to spell, so it's a lot easier to go with Mike Respects. If you're looking for YouTube, though, look up Center for Respect. That's the one place it is, Center for Respect. We do daily videos, and literally 50 to 60-second videos from events. So you can get these discussions. You can share them with your kids. You can share them with your family and friends on Facebook and other places that you want to. And we're even on TikTok because we want to be where the students are too. So we're trying to reach as many as we can.
Mike, I applaud your passion and commitment to this, to a very touchy subject that some folks are going to shy away from. There are not many people who are in the youth development world that want to tackle this. They want to stay away from this because of all the messiness and there's just so much, that yes, they would like to give them great skills and stuff, but this is not for everyone. And I love to see your passion. This is a calling. So thank you so much for that. Thank you. For what you do.
Look, James, you made this happen. So thank you. There aren't
Graham made it happen.
Graham did. That's right. We'll give Graham his due because he deserves it. But you opened your podcast to this, to be fair. And so I'm grateful for Graham introducing us. But you're having the conversation where most podcasts aren't. I had recently a podcaster say, I'm going to be on their show, and they go, well, just let's not talk about anything, too sexual. If the 6-year-old's in the car, we don't need mom turning down the radio. And I thought, oh, so you don't want mom to have, first of all, nothing you and I just said is rated R. Nothing.
No.
Right? Not even really near PG-13. Maybe a couple things. Maybe the nudes conversation. But that's it. But to say, let's not have a real conversation. Let's really sugarcoat this. is unhealthy. And do you know what kids say all the time in our surveys? Finally, an adult who talk to us like adults. Because usually around this topic, they're sugar coated. It's either sugar coated or it's lectured, right? And so lectured, you're being talked down to. Sugar coated, you're being talked like you're a child. So it's not talked down to, but it's like dumbed down is what it is. And lots left out. They want real conversations, right? So what's the worst thing if your 6-year-old goes, what was that about? And you say, no one has the right to touch you, honey. What's wrong with that? That's a great conversation to have. There's nothing inappropriate at that age.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your passion for this. This has been a good one. We're gonna make a lot of little clips out of this one so that we can keep this message going for this. And I want to thank the audience. Hey, listen, if you've stuck with us for almost 40 minutes now, you must either left it on by accident or you really, really like what we've talked about and it's spoken to you. So comment on this, like this, but more importantly than either one of those things is share the message with someone who doesn't know about this conversation yet. Share with them where they can find out this information because as Mike said, we don't want to be part of that only 10% of the parents that show up. We want to equip everyone that we can reach. So please share it as much as you can. It's such an amazing and important topic. Thank you again. And thank you, Mike. And we'll see everyone again on a new episode coming up soon of the Generation Youth Podcast.